Good evening, everyone. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to a Tuesday night, November 11th. That's 11/11/2025, 9:49 in the PM out here in California. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 1.7 earthquake hiding somewhere out here. Not a big earthquake. But man, do we have a lot of space weather activity to chat about here this evening. Got some major aurora activity stirring up here. This is from one of my viewers here, Vladimir in Missouri, with his weather station out here in view, showing the beautiful red, pink colors, also green down there on the northern end of that aurora activity this evening. Major G4 class storm occurring right now. And by the way, just a quick heads up, I will be putting together a montage video or a little montage for tomorrow's update. If you can send me your aurora pictures tonight, okay? That's just one of them there from Vladimir in the Missouri area. If you have some awesome aurora pictures you want to show tonight, send them to earthmastermail@gmail.com. The email, earthmastermail@gmail.com. Pretty simple. Send it to me. Let me know where you're at, and we'll get those on for you tomorrow night for the montage there. But man, we're talking about a significant aurora uptick there around the G4 class storm earlier. Things are starting to mellow out slightly here. But goodness, we go from nothing to all of a sudden something up into the G4. Not quite the G5 category yet, but I have a feeling once that third CME kicks in, we'll see G5 and higher. I want to show you guys here real quick the forecast here from the Space Weather Prediction Center and let you guys know what's going on out here, because there's a lot of misinformation going on. But I'm going to show you guys here real quick what's going on. The sun in the yellow, Earth in the green, stereo A in the red. Look at the number of CMEs that have been produced here. There's the first one, the second one, and we got one more, the most powerful third one back there. That's a higher speed CME that got shot off here. We have not observed that yet. What we've seen tonight was just a first and second CME that was produced here. Okay, let me show you guys once again. First one, second one, the third one was much faster, so that's going to slam into the planet and elevate those potential auroras through the evening, potentially early tomorrow morning as well. Right now, things are backing off slightly, but goodness, look at the major. We're talking about maximum proton elevated activity right now. It can't get any more maximum than this. Northern and southern polar regions there getting hammered with the protons. This is just exciting the ionosphere, and it's a big one. The X flare that kicked off earlier was the sixth largest flare this solar cycle. That's a pretty big deal. Look at that G4 class storm. That was above what they had forecasted. There's still, obviously, we're waiting on the G5 class storm. When that hits, we'll see that speed there jump up probably above 1,000 or so. I don't see that yet. It's only at about, it's dropped down a little bit. But the plasma has jumped up, the density in the plasma. The BT-BZ component is starting to stabilize a little bit. But once we get that final third CME coming in here, that is expected to be around the 1,600 km per second range. Look at this. I'm going to pause this real quick so I can show you guys. Right about there. Look at that. 1,600. That is major elevated activity right here. That should be maximized there about 1,700 Z time. Right now, the Z time is currently sitting at 0500. So it looks like this may be coming in later this evening. which may not be favorable for the North American side of the planet, but we'll have to watch this and see how it behaves. Either way, that could stir up further auroras tomorrow night for the North American side. But it's a pretty big deal there, folks. That's, not too often we see auroras down here in Northern California, Florida. I've seen auroras in northern Texas, Florida. I came out here myself and shot a couple aurora shots in my backyard, and it picked it up. I could see it with my phone. But man, it's not quite as strong as the May event last year, but we should probably see that elevated throughout the evening. Watch for that. G4 class storm, one step below the major category of G5. We're still looking at, oh man, check this out. Kevin has reamped the forecast here for a 55% chance for X-flare activity. Holy moly. That's one step above me. This seems like a competition. Hello. Proton event, 99% chance. So we're just getting bombarded with proton events right now. M-flare, 85% chance. So all this doom and gloom, right? Oh, well, that's coming off of 4274. Let's take a look here at the latest imagery of 4274. And you know what? Yes, it does still look like it's going to produce some further X-flare activity. All these other regions out there, not so much. But this is the culprit of the recent major flaring activity, and also, of course, the Aurora activity this evening. Big time deal. Definitely a big time deal. We're talking about major space weather activity, right? We're talking about bombardment of protons right now. Look at that. I don't even think we can get even more bombarded than what we're seeing right now. This is definitely stirring up on the ionosphere, majorly hitting the northern and southern polar regions. We just got slammed with at least two powerful CMEs. We've had multiple X-flares. Well, how's the earthquake activity looking here, folks? I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but we're getting hammered with all the space weather activity, but there's no earthquake activity stirring up. What say you? What say I? What's going on? The largest earthquake so far today has only been a 5.4 around the Japan area. That was earlier this afternoon. So as we're getting bombarded with all the space weather activity, earthquake activity taking a back seat. Nothing major has happened. I don't see any major increase in earthquake activity. There's no major elevated activity that I can see. So, this is very eerily similar to what I experienced in May of last year. So I honestly think here, and I'm going out here on a little observation here, that it's not the flaring activity that stirs up earthquake activity. Obviously, it's not the proton activity that's stirring up, right? Because this has been hammering us for the last 2 days. I haven't seen any earthquake activity uptick. We're getting bombarded with Aurora activity, right? That's been stirring up like crazy. But every time we get an Aurora event out here, or not Aurora, but a coronal hole activity facing the planet, that's when things stir up. So we do have 95 coming up here, northern section there of the sun that will be facing the planet here in a couple days. But, think about this here. I don't know how much more space weather activity I would expect to endure out here that would cause earthquake activity out here, because this is doing absolutely nothing. We got a G4 class storm, almost a G5, stirring up with major proton events, auroras down to Florida, and here we are with a rinky-dink, literally a rinky-dink 5.4 in Japan. We see those every day. So, this is like the lottery out here. There's no major uptick for earthquake activity right now following this space weather event. None whatsoever. Zip zero. You cannot convince me that what's going on right now is kicking up the earthquake activity whatsoever. Look at this. Okay, I look at these maps every single day, every hour, every second of the hour. So, I'll give it a day. I'll give it one day. But who's to say that, absolutely no one can say that, well, you have to wait 2 weeks for the effects to take effect. That's BS right there, right? You cannot say that you have to wait so and so before the uptick occurs. Yeah, that's that's some funny business right there. That's like saying you have to wait 20 years for California to have an earthquake because this happened. That's nonsense. That's hogwash. You can't say that. So if things are stirring up like they are, we're getting bombarded in our magnetosphere. Proton events are hammering up right now. We should see elevated earthquake activity happening right now. That was the cause, but we're not seeing that. I seen this last May. I honestly, severely don't think that what we're seeing right now affects earthquake activity whatsoever. Not even one single bit. Look at what's happening out here. The proton event. Nothing is going on, folks. Hello. That's hogwash. But I do think here these coronal holes have an effect on the earthquake activity. From what I've seen, what I've witnessed, what I've put together here in my little journal here of space weather activity and relation to earthquake activity. The last couple coronal holes have been coming across the planet, or at least the Earth-facing side of the planet, has elevated earthquake activity. So it's these magnetic lines that shoot out from the coronal holes tend to have an effect here on the planet, and for whatever reason, it does stir earthquake activity up. But we're looking at a major top event here. This is not a minor, it happens every day. No, this happens maybe once every couple years. So why are we not seeing major earthquake activity uptick with what we're seeing right now? There's no, I'm going to give it to the morning, folks. I'm going to give it to the morning, okay? I'm going to eat my words right now, and I'll give it to the morning before I say there's no relationship, okay? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. Major X flares, major CME activity, bombardment with protons, major Aurora activity. The magnetosphere is getting slammed with a massive CME activity going on. I'll give it to the morning, okay? And then I'll either eat my words or I'll state my truth. Let's go ahead and take a look here at earthquake activity, see what's going on for now, okay? This 2.1 outside of Loma Linda is not because of the space weather activity. They get a lot of earthquake activity down here. And in fact, there's 30 to 40 earthquakes that occur across Southern California on every single day. This is nothing new. In fact, in the last 30 days, would you guys be surprised that there was almost 1,000 earthquakes in Southern California? Would that surprise you? It shouldn't, because that's what happens here along a major plate boundary. Many different secondary fault systems and third fault systems that live out here, or they live out here. They are existent out here. So 1,000 earthquakes out here in the last 30 days. Would it surprise you that that is below normal? We should normally see about 1,500 to 2,000 earthquakes out here in the last 30 days for Southern California. So we are actually a little bit below normal for earthquake activity out there. And those are very small microquakes, but it shows the plate movement and the fault movement out here. 2.5 and above, non-existent today. The Hayward Fault, Calaveras Fault up here, that has completely died off. Nothing going on out there. One more earthquake out here this morning in the that's not in Bandon, Oregon, right? That's Bandon, Oregon's right up here. That's way off the coast of Oregon. but that should amplify the areas down south here, right? In the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Let's go see what's going on with the Cascadia for now. Let's take a look. 100, yeah, it's right there in that area as well, where you would expect the the activity to stir up. Look at that. We've seen the 3.1 out here, right? Am I right? 3.1 strike slip boundary. This is a strike slip boundary here, so it could go either way, but most of the time it's been occurring down here. That right there. I'm trying to make some science noises out here, but that's where we see elevated activity stir up when we're looking at the strike slip boundary out here. That's tremor activity underneath the area of the plate boundary, the North American plate. That tells me right there that strain is building up along that beautiful locked area that will produce a major earthquake one day. Right now there's no major earthquake, but it's building. I can guarantee you it's building, folks. Nothing major going on across the Washington area for now. Nothing major across Yellowstone. Let's take a look here at the globe, the earthquake 3D globe. See if we got anything going on here. There is some newer activity across Japan, the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. It's almost like clockwork out here. You can watch the activity stir up north. It works its way down through the center portion of the Earth, down south here, and then eventually down across the southern end. That's where a lot of the older activity is. And then it starts back up along the northern end. It's almost like clockwork out here. So there is a lot of newer activity up here across the northwestern corner of the Pacific Plate. Japan's starting to swarm back up here again. Storm. It's been a major area of earthquake activity here recently. And I don't think this is aftershock activity from the 9.1 that struck in 2011. This has some similarities to the 9.1 back many years ago. But I don't think we're going to see a megaquake out here. I don't understand how we could see another major quake out here, megaquake in this area, because it hasn't been an extended time. But man, at 6.8 or 6.9 and 6.1 and many other 5s out here, that's a decent amount of earthquake activity to show up on a major trench zone that just had a megaquake some odd years ago. So this tells me here that increasing slip rate is happening out here across the Western Pacific, more so than normal, to see that accumulation of slip resulting in elevated earthquake activity so soon. So we'll continue to watch that. It's definitely built up there for some earthquake activity. There's obviously a possibility here that we could see some larger activity, but the main concern here for me that I've been watching is a Nankai Trough here. Watch that very closely. I don't think I'll be eating my words on that. The cluster zone across the Philippines southward, Papua New Guinea area. Looks like a 5.1 out here. Pretty newer activity going on. Swarming out there in Turkey still. Nothing major going on across the Atlantic. We do have some newer activity across the South Sandwich Trench. Man, something's going on down there across the southern area. Just got a bunch of activity stirring up here across the South Sandwich Trench. And it's surprisingly, it's this area itself seen in 8.1 back here, 2021. So 4 years ago, but we're still seeing a couple years later major earthquake activity out here. It's not building up. It's not building up slip. It's just having earthquake activity continuously. And that's just in the last 30 days. So there's definitely been an increasing movement there across the subduction zones that doesn't take a lot of time to build up strain. It's seeing repetitive earthquake activity. Let's go check out California. See what we got going on here real quick. Just double check. Nothing major. Bay Area pretty quiet. inland areas. You got this swarming going on across the oil fields out there, but really nothing major. There's that one earthquake out there in the New Hampshire area, 1.9 from this morning. But there's another 4.2 up here north of Iceland. That's a third or fourth earthquake here in the last 24 hours. We got a lot of interesting movement going on out here, but surprisingly, no major earthquake activity. I call this that we're seeing some elevated activity in numerous areas, but there's no big earthquake activity going on. A 5.4, whoop-de-doo. That happens on any given day out here, regardless of space weather activity. So I'm going to give it to the morning. A G4 class storm is happening. We're getting bombarded with protons. X-flare activity galore over the last couple days. Where are we at with earthquake activity? If this is the cause of elevated earthquake activity, how come we're not seeing that right now? This has been happening all day and all night. What's going on? I'm not a naysayer, but I want the proof. I do want the proof, and you can't tell me that we have to wait 2 weeks from now to see earthquake activity on the uptick, because that's like saying, that's almost like saying that California is definitely going to have an earthquake, but we have to wait 30 years. Come on, hello. So space weather is definitely look at that, man. Things increasing up there across the northern area north of Iceland. Now we have a 5.6 coming in. Look at that. That's coming in here within the last 5 or 10 minutes or so. You guys see that? We were just chatting about that earthquake activity up there. So we do have some broad, interesting earthquake activity taking place, but nothing big yet. So we'll definitely check back here in the morning. The space weather activity and the earthquake activity relationship is something I've been keeping tabs on here, keeping a total tally on. And so far, at least this year, I see more relationship for earthquake activity with coronal hole activity than I do anything else. Far as flaring, far as CME activity, far as proton events go. It does seem that when the coronal hole activity is facing us, boom, the magnetic lines that shoot out from this area seem to have an effect on the plate tectonics out here. But that's an observation, folks. And I'm just kind of telling it like it is. But anyway, man, Kevin has ramped this stuff up like crazy. X-flare at 55% chance. Man, he's going way above me. It's like, hold on. Who's in charge here? Let's see if we have a 55% chance for X-flare activity. Man, look at that close proximity there between the positive and negative up here. Yeah, it's definitely there. I do think we have a decent chance of seeing an X-flare activity, another X-flare, but it is off there on the western limb, close to the western limb. So anything that does shoot off from this solar flare or from this sunspot activity may be directed away from Earth. So either way, man, goodness, there is a lot of activity going on right now. The Aurora activity taking a back seat for now, but that looks like it's because of the BTBZ component. But we're waiting on the arrival of the high-speed CME that should kick up that speed well above 600. This is just the first and second one. This should shoot up well above 1,000, 1,200, maybe even up to 1,600, which would definitely spark up the Aurora activity. Early morning hours. All right. Oh, man. Let's see what's going on here. Where am I? Let's check out the numerical models here real quick. Got a lot of space weather activity. And we have a lot of rain activity coming up here for California and in general the West Coast here. Look, man, Southern California hello, you're taking all of our rainfall. Cut off low pressure system tapping into an atmospheric river, bringing in sufficient rainfall for Southern California and, of course, snowfall up in the higher elevations. That is for the remainder of the week and into the weekend. And it's just a mixed bag of precipitation out here for the West Coast. And I'm okay with that. Wow, look at that blast of cold air coming down there a little bit later into early next week. Around Thanksgiving time or so. That's pretty crazy. Either way, it's winter, coming up on winter. Things are expected to happen. This isn't anything that's not normal. We get cold spells, we get warm spells, we get massive inflow of moisture. This is something that happens every single year out here. So I'm ready for some rainfall. Bring it on. Bring on the rainfall, please, and thank you very much. But for now, folks, let's check the seismograph stations. Pretty quiet, It's I wish I could come out here and say, wow, look at all this earthquake activity ramping up. We got a 6-pointer here, a 6-pointer there, 7-pointer here. But I'd be lying to you if I were to say that. We're getting bombarded with massive space weather activity, and there's not a peep squeak or a blip of any major sign of earthquake activity going on out here. I'll give it to the morning. I will. Okay? And then we'll talk then. Have a good evening. Watch for Aurora activity. We'll see you guys out here soon.